number one topic that I am asked about continually. Like, my DMs are always filled with people asking me this, which is always about dating. Every single time, dating, singleness, marriage. Like, and I don't understand why people ask me about marriage when I'm not married. So that feels like a bad idea. But teach their own. But I'm just gonna answer questions. So I had a group of my friends just send me a ton of different questions that I'm going to answer. I haven't looked over them, so this should be as shocking for you as it is for me as we read through these bad boys. And I'm kind of going to have fun with this because I know that I just want to kind of see what the questions are, and I want to think in my mind who would ask me this question. So, all right. Oh, I love that we outlined it into different sections. Ooh, purpose and calling questions. Here we go. What is God's purpose for me in this season of singleness? Yeah, here is how I will answer this, which might not be what you want to hear, but I believe that when you're single, that it is a gift, and that is a time for you to figure out what you're called to find yourself in the Lord. So then when you are married, you have something to bear from, right? I believe that each of us is digging a well. And when you're married, you get to take from that well, and you get to teach from that well. And so the deeper your well is, the more you have to give. And so if you're looking at singleness and you're like, I just want to rush through this, don't rush through it, because continually throughout the Word of God, it talks about how there are seasons for each and everything. And you'll see like the Lord is continually trying to teach a theme through the entire scripture, which is about growth and giving time to things, right? Yes, sometimes it's fast, but a lot of times what you see is that it's slow, and that there are things that the Lord is teaching you. David was anointed king and then had to go back to a field, right? Abraham was told he'd be a father of many nations. He didn't see it for a very long time. Abraham was told he would have a son, didn't see that for a very long time. So it's just like those moments where I'm like, there is something that you're going to have to wait for, but there is something to be bore in the midst of these seasons where you're waiting. And so I think that this is the time to figure out, okay, Lord, like, what am I called to? What is your heart for me? I think those type of questions are super vital right now, right? How do you see me? What do you even see my family looking like? What do I even want to see from my family, right? What are things that I can learn from people who are married in the midst of singleness that I can take with me to use in other seasons? Like, those are all things you can learn in this season. And then I'm going to say a little bit of the selfish answer here. You can kind of do whatever you want. You don't got to ask nobody. You can kind of just jump on a plane if you're like me and just go wherever you want and be like, I'm leaving, bye. You can eat whatever you want. That's the selfish side of me. But I think that there's a little bit of purpose in there, and God's like, have a little bit of free reign, figure it out. Learn some self-control in the midst of this. Okay. How can I discover my calling while I'm single? Yeah. This is something that I think evolves, for one, but also honestly has to do with you and the Lord. I think figuring out your calling is really, really important, that you bear to the Lord either pain or things that you've never talked about or things that you haven't dug for. I think that's what this season is, and I think that's very vital to your calling. Every single thing that I have felt, I can't say every single thing, but most things that I felt called to by the Lord, I have either had to walk through or had a time where I was challenged by it. And so discovering my calling it really came down to how much time I spent with the Lord. Like, really, it did. Like, I got caught up in his presence, and then he'd show me like what it is, what I'm called to, what this is, why I brought you through this. And those are the things that have kind of shaped that answer for me. Is singleness a gift, and how do I embrace it if I don't feel that way? Whoa. That is a deep question. Yeah, I do believe it's a gift. I believe that every season is a gift, and I believe that singleness is a gift because there are relationships you're meant to bring forth and steward, and finding yourself is super vital to be able to know who you are in the midst of marriage. And I believe that truly embracing it is tough sometimes, but you can't always live from your feelings. Like, I don't think that marriage is going to be a cakewalk every single time I'm in the midst of it, right? So if you're walking through singleness and you're like, I hate this, I hate this, I hate this, are you going to do the same thing when you're married and you're walking through a tough season? Like, are you going to be like, I just want to get out of this? Or are you going to use the tools that you learned on how to walk through desert seasons and get through, you know? And those are things that you learned in the midst of this. And I think you can embrace it in these ways. I think if you don't have a clear foundation, it's going to be a tough season for you. And this is the foundation, right? It's the Lord, your heart, and your community. If you don't do those three things, right, and you don't have those three things, it's going to be a tough season for you. If you're not really honest with the Lord and you don't have a relationship with him, it's already going to suck. And then if you're not honest in your heart with the Lord, with yourself, about how you feel about what you would want this to look like, it's going to suck even more. If you have nobody to tell, this is terrible at that point. You're in chaos. So those three things are really vital to embracing the season, even when you don't feel like it. So how do I trust God's timing for my future spouse? Ooh. Well, my lovely answer, how do you trust God's timing? Here's what it comes down to, right? I think it comes down to, do you believe the Lord is good? Like, do you believe that good things are for you? Do you believe that God will bring it to completion? Because his word says that he will. And so if you're somebody that's like, I believe that I'm meant to be married, and you've had conversations with the Lord and those things, then the time will come. If there's a season for everything, that doesn't mean that he's just going to leave you bankrupt over here and be like, well, figure it out. Hope it works out. My question to you is this, right? Here's my one question. If it never comes, will you still love him? If you never get married, would you still love the Lord? Because I think the Lord's on the other side of that. Yes or no? That's just personally me. I think when it comes down to things like this, or it comes down to success, or it comes down to callings and things like that, I just think it all comes down to, if he never gave it to me, would my heart be moved? And I'm going to be honest with you, it wouldn't. It would be tough, but it wouldn't be moved. So that's it. That's how I'm going to leave that. I'm not answering that question because I know exactly who asked that, and I'm not answering that. Yeah. How do I maintain hope when everyone around me seems to be getting married? Yeah, I think you got to get... This is tough. It's tough because it's not always the easiest thing to do. I think you always stay honest in your heart, and then you get honest with your people, and then you find something you love. This is me being practical about it for a second. You find, like, if you're really in love with Jesus, you're doing all these great things. I think you find something else you love too. You go, okay, God, what's something I can, like, fall in love with in this season? You know, everybody, I'm so happy for them. I'm so happy for them. Like, but what can I find hope in this season? And that's probably not the answer that everybody wants me to chalk up to it, but that's how I think. Like, what is it? What can I give to? What can I find some purpose in? What can I journey in with you? Right? And I think what you're going to realize is that when you get caught up in those things, you kind of forget about the other stuff. So that's what I'm going to answer that to. Wait. Whoa, that is a question. Somebody asked, where do I find meaningful community if I feel overlooked in my church? Woo! Yeah, I know exactly who's asking these questions. This is wild. Um, yeah, I here's what I would do. If I can't find it in my church, I'm going to build it. This is me, okay? I'm going to go to the Lord. I'm going to ask the Lord, how do I build this? And I'm going to build it. Or he's going to direct me in the right way to go, right? I've had this season, but I've had, which is really cool of the Lord, to like bring different friendships in for me, from different people who really could encourage me, who could really pour into me. And I think that it's really this too. I think one of the biggest pieces that really helped me to build meaningful community was having really meaningful mentors who could point me in the right direction, but also could encourage me in like, hey, stay steadfast in your heart with the Lord, like stay steadfast in your prayer for looking for community. And I've never asked for friendship from the Lord and been let down. I've never asked for deeper community and been let down by the Lord. And so I really believe that there are ways to make this happen, which is actually really funny that that's the question. I feel like that was a segue question because we're actually building that right now. It was one of the things that the Lord laid on my heart was to build a community of pretty much women who can actually have honest conversations with one another. And so that's currently being built out. It's not completely up on the site yet. As I'm kind of like warring with myself, my creative spirit can't say yes or no to something right now. But I'm just trying to figure out the best way to make it happen in the way that it will produce the most fruit for other people. Because I don't want to do this for me. I would want to do this for those that need. And so that's something that we're currently building out, which is really funny that that's the question. Yeah. How can I delve deeper? How can I develop deeper friendships with other singles or married couples in the church? Yeah, I think you have to get connected. I think if you really want deeper relationships in your church, you have to find those things. It's just not going to be given to you. And so, like, get into a small group, serve, join a team, you know what I mean? Like, do all of those things. Those are super, super valuable things. Get into a Bible study. Those things will always find you people that just are in different phases of life, different spaces of life, and be open about it. To, if you're an introvert like me, that's tough for us. I'm not going to sit there and lie to you and be like, yes, I go to a small group every week. Baby, when we signed up for a small group, me and my family, so it's like me, my brother-in-law, and my sister. Your girl did not want to go because I'm an introvert to the core. Like, I was going to work full time. I did not want to go. I was like, please, like, I just want to lay down. And as an introvert, I think every introvert understands people just take energy from us. And so going to a small group was like, I really have to go be around people. But it is good for us. People are good for us. So if you're one of those people that's like, I don't really want to do that, don't be shocked if you don't have community. So I'm just going to say, you have to get out of your comfort zone a little bit. That's pretty much what relationship with the Father is like, is jumping out into the uncomfortable. So how do I know if someone is the one God has for me? You guys, these freaking questions. How do I know if someone is the one God has for me? Yeah, I don't believe in the one. I will never believe in that, because I think then it would get off somewhere, like somebody would have been wrong, and then we don't have free will anymore. You know what I'm saying? Weird. But no, if you're really earnestly looking and you're like, how do I know if this person is the person that I'm supposed to be married to? I think it's this, like, this is how I go about it, right? I like to be friends with somebody before I start dating someone. I'm trying to think this through. I don't think I've dated anybody that I was not friends with first. Yeah, no. that I was not friends with first. Has not happened. And the reason that I do that is because I like to see how they treat their friends. I like to see friendship allows in a depth of vulnerability. And so there are conversations that are had, there are things that are said that you can look at and go, ooh. And so that's just personally me. But if you're one of those people that's like, I don't want to be friends with them first, I would look at their friends and I would hang out with their friends then and see what their friends say and things like that about them and stuff like that. Also, who they hang around is a very big indicator of if they should be the one for you. But also, I think the fruit that they bear is vital. Like, what fruit are they bearing? If you're really looking for the one and you're like, they are bearing one piece of fruit, they bear kindness, but they don't bear anything else, that's a red flag. If they're not bearing good fruit, it means that they're not rooted in the Lord. And so it's just not somebody that you would want personally. So that's kind of like the biggest thing. Like, you can tell who's rooted in the Lord by the way that they talk, by the way that they act, by the way that they approach people. Like, so I think that's the biggest thing. Like, somebody who's really in love with Jesus doesn't have to fake it. They don't ever have to say it. Their actions always exude it. Every single time. Every single time. And so if you're still like, I don't know if this person's the one, get your community. Your community will always be honest with you because they are people that have gone to the depths with you, so why would they lie to you in this place? If they're like, break up with them, it's not because they hate you, it's because they love you. Why would people who have gone through hell with you tell you to take a good thing out of your life? Maybe because it's not actually as good as you think it is. So if you're one of those people that's like, I still need help to figure this out, like, get your community and see what your community says. I've never seen, this is going to get somebody. I've never seen personally a community that has called out and been like, hey, that person's not for you. I've never seen that go wrong. Not once. Not one time. I've seen people make choices and then are shocked by where their choices lead them, and then are shocked by like the pain that it's caused, and lost a lot of people. I've seen a lot of people lose a lot of people because their community was just honest with them. But I'm just saying. So if you're looking for the one, they're not bearing good fruit, and your community says no, then dump them. Get them out. And by dump them, I mean like send them to the altar, like take them to the king. And don't take him to the king with the intention of like, we're gonna date after. Don't do that. That is crazy. Should I date someone if we have different beliefs or levels of faith? Ooh, that is a great question. I think I'm gonna answer the levels of faith part because I don't really know what we mean by different beliefs. I don't know if we're talking about like religion or things like that. Because I think like if you're just talking about like theological beliefs, I think that you can find middle ground, like Jesus, Son of God. I don't know. Okay, don't let me get into that. Levels of faith. Here's my thing. I think if somebody's like a baby Christian, I would say don't date them. If you, and I mean it in this way, right? I would say take time for and allow them to grow. Like, have a conversation. If you're both like, wow, we really, really like each other. They're a baby Christian, right? I think we should really be together. You just have the honest conversation of, hey, I think you need to grow, but I want to eventually start a relationship with you after you've grown, after you have a foundation in the Lord. Because I feel like, for me personally, this is how I feel, it can get a little testy. And what you might find is that they start looking at you for Jesus instead of looking at the cross. And so I think you have to let them get discipled, grow, delve into their word, figure out some things, begin to bear, dig a well, get those good things, and then go ahead and just have the conversation. It's not that hard to have that conversation. I think a lot of times we chalk a lot of the stuff up to like, well, that's uncomfortable. Well, welcome to living for Jesus. It's uncomfortable. You're going to have hard conversations. It's a part of life. So that's just me personally. We're talking about beliefs. I don't know if we're talking about like theological beliefs or not. Because, I don't know, my brother-in-law and my sister, they have some different theological beliefs. Like, he believes like a more Calvinist view of once saved, always saved, and she doesn't. And we've all had conversations about this. And so there's like things like that that's like, okay. But I think you just have to have conversations about them, and you have to figure out those are deal breakers for each other. Because some things are, and some things aren't. So you just have to have a conversation. I feel like I already answered that. Yeah. How do I honor God with my sexuality as a single Christian? Yeah. That's tough, huh? Sorry. Yeah, that's tough, especially, I don't know. Hormones are just raging and everything's like so sexualized in culture right now that it's just tough to do that. And I think that it's this, you have to have self-control, and you have to really lock in what you're looking at and what you're listening to and what you're allowing into your life. Because I think one of the places that the enemy really loves to build separation is obviously with sin, but I think it's through sexual sin. And I think that that's one of the big things right now is like, what is your eyes looking to? What are your ears hearing? What are you allowing in? What are your boundaries on those things where you let things in? And I have had to be really strict about stuff like that I can watch, that I can't watch. Like, we've talked about how like I don't listen to Beyonce anymore, just because it just wasn't bearing fruit for me. And so there's just things like that I'm going to ask you, like, if you really want to honor the Lord with this, I think you have to really set boundaries and really, really be honest and self-control, and get accountability if you need accountability. It can be super helpful. So, what are healthy boundaries in Christian dating? Yeah. So my boundaries, I have a lot of boundaries as an introvert. No, I don't have a lot of boundaries. I would say healthy boundaries can involve a lot of things, right? For me personally, like physical boundaries, easy. Those were easy. Those were cake for me. But I think that's just because my love language is not physical touch. So, you know what I'm saying? So that was never an issue for me. Never had that issue. If physical touch is your thing, you're like, I need somebody to like hold me. I need somebody to like kiss me. I need that. I would say that you need to figure out in your heart and with the Lord and in your relationship where the line is. And you need to stand firm on that for you personally. That was never a big issue for me, so I can't like delve deeper into that. But I think for me, I'm a deep thinker. I don't want to call myself an intellectual because that makes it seem like I'm calling people dumb. But I am a deep thinker and thoughts and those type of things. And so for me, what I realized is that I can get attached very quickly by having very deep conversations and having bearing my heart in that way. Like, that's like the bearing of my heart, right? And so those are things that I realized that I personally had to put a boundary on for myself, like when I'm either talking to somebody or dating someone, just because I'm like, until we hit like blank step, then we can have like this, because that's where my heart gets given. I think that's what you have to figure out, is like, where does your heart get given and where do I have to put these lines at? And so there's other things too, like you can put up, right? Sex, that's the easiest one. Like, oh, I'm not gonna have sex before marriage. That's an easy conversation to have, right? What are other healthy boundaries? Honestly, I have a lot of friends that have different ones. I have one friend where they don't hang out past, what is it, like, is it 10? Is it 10 o'clock? It is 10. You said 10. Okay. Where they don't hang out past 10 o'clock. And a couple of my friends have the rule where like they won't hang out at each other's apartments without like one of their roommates being there. That's a big one. Overnight things like trips and things like that, they don't do by themselves, which is super healthy. I'm really trying to think, because I'm such an introvert that I'm like, like we didn't do any of those things, so I'm like, I don't really care about those things. Oh yeah, they did have that rule, didn't they? So two of our friends that are married now, they had a feet on the ground rule, where so whenever they would hang out or whatever, somebody's feet had to be on the ground. So they like weren't like cuddled on a couch. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that like was not happening for them. That was a big thing for them. And then I think, yeah, that was mine, wasn't it? When I was in college, there was this one rule that I did have, which was that we couldn't sit in the car for more than 5 minutes. Yeah. And some people are going to be like, that's insane. No, because it's not crazy to me, because I was like, I know what will happen. I know what can happen if we just if we're just sitting in this car all night long outside of your dorm or outside of my dorm. Like nothing good is going to be produced from that. And the stories that I could tell from Bible school about sitting in cars, great, numerous things. But yeah, that was my big one for me personally. I still kind of live on that one, where I'm like, yeah, we're not going to sit in the car for more than 5 minutes, because what good could come of this besides us like we can have a conversation anywhere else. Plus, I'm a homebody, so I'm not sitting in a car and being uncomfortable. Doesn't even make sense to me. But yeah, it's just healthy boundaries are honestly, I think it's whatever you personally need. I think you look at yourself and what can make you stumble, and you build out boundaries from there. How can I navigate feelings of sexual temptation while staying faithful to God? Yeah, like I said before, you have to build up boundaries of what you're going to allow in and what's your yeses and what are your nos. I think that is really, really, really vital. A lot of people think that they understand that, but then it kind of hits them, right? And I think if you're somebody that's like, I'm struggling with lust, or I'm struggling with pornography or those type of things, I think honestly it's what your eyes, what your ears, what you are allowing in. And I think you have to build up really good accountability. And I want to say this, right? It's okay that you fell into sin. It's just not okay to live there. And so you go and you repent. If you're struggling, you go and you repent. You get rid of all those things. You find some way to block those things from yourself, right? Whether that's being like, I will not watch this, or I won't allow this in, or it's literally getting safeguards on your phone or on your computer, or whatever you need to do. And then you get accountability, right, with somebody that you really, really trust, who can hold you accountable in those things, because it's so vital. Because let's be honest, right? The hormones, it's a part of it. It is a part of who we are. It is a part of the way that God has made us. Literally, when Paul talks about it in 1 Corinthians 7, he literally says, it is better to marry than to burn with passion. He's talking about hormones. He's like, yeah, the hormones are gonna come, guys. What are you gonna do? You gotta figure it out, right? And so you just have to build boundaries and safeguards for yourself, and that's okay. Like, it's okay. You fell. You're getting healthy. It's beautiful. The Lord loves when we are honest in our hearts, when we have fallen and we come back to Him. That's what the blood is for. You know, that's what grace is for. It's for those things. So, yeah, you got to build really healthy boundaries. I also want to say this, because we just talked about 1 Corinthians 7. Yeah, better to marry than to burn with passion. I want to say this one really quick thing. I saw maybe the funniest thing I've ever seen. Sorry, some of my friends are here. The funniest thing I've ever seen. So I am a big person that's like, I don't think that you should get married unless you've been together for like 6 months. This is just like me. Like, don't get engaged. Like, don't get married if you haven't been together for 6 months. Because I think like 6 months, you've gone through a couple seasons. You know what I mean? Like, you've gone through a season. 4 months is a quarter, right? And so personally for me, that's just what I think. But I saw this thing where somebody was like, where they got engaged after a month, and they were like, the Lord called us into covenant together, And I said, or your hormones were raging. You were burning with passion, and that's okay. Like, I think my thing is like, okay, if you're like, man, we just like we want to have sex. Okay, like be honest about it. Like, okay, your hormones are raging. That okay, great, because you found somebody you love. Like, you really, really like them. It's great. Like, but I don't know. There's just one of those things where I'm like, guys, did he really call you into that after a month, or were your hormones just raging? And you're like, we just really want to sleep together. Okay, so self-control. Where is it? Because I don't see it. I'm looking for her, and she's not here. Sorry, that's just a little bit of my tangent. Okay, we have 6 questions left. Guys, you guys are killing me. Okay. How do I stop comparing my singleness to others' marriages or relationships? Yeah. You know what? You find yourself in the eyes of the Lord. Like, you find out how he loves you. You find out the worth that you have found in him. You get real confident in that. You don't really care about anybody else. I'm going to be so real with you. When you're fixed on Jesus, everybody else is whatever anybody else has got going on, not really appealing to you. This is coming from me. I don't really care about other people's relationships as much. Like, I'm like super happy for you, like great, but I don't get jealous of that. Like, I'm like, well, this is where the Lord has me and I'm content. And I'm not even just saying that because like I think real contentment comes from not even the realization that you're happy, like that you're fine. And that might sound a little misconstrued, but I mean it in this way. Like, you kind of get to this place where like everything's so normal that you don't realize you're not dissatisfied. And I think what's happening is like, I've watched a lot of people get really caught up with where everybody else is, and so they're no longer content with where they are because they see what everybody else has. It's almost like when you open up your Christmas gifts and somebody gets something better than you. Like, you opened up yours and you got like an iPhone, right? And then somebody else opens up theirs and they got like an iPhone and some Apple Maxes, right? And you're like, oh, like I want that because that looks better. When you're locked in love and identity and your confidence is rooted in Christ, you don't really care about what everybody else has. You're like, I'm super content over here. I got my iPhone. I can do so much with this. I'm good. So when you start to look at all the other things, of course you're not going to be content anymore. Of course it's not going to be good anymore. And I think that's what the enemy loves to do. I think he loves to be like, actually the grass is greener on the other side. And I'm going to be honest with you, I have a lot of married friends. Marriage is great. Great for them, right? But I'm going to be so real. I know for myself, if I had been married before this point in life, I definitely would have been divorced by now. Like, without a shadow of a doubt, divorced. Because I would not be who I am. I would not know who I was in the Lord. I would not be confident. I would not have built the things I've built with the Lord. And so, and married people will also say the same thing. Like, yes, it's great, but it's not always greener. It just brings more complexities. And I think a lot of times we're like, well, I want those complexities. And married people, you want to get it figured out before you step into the complexities. Like, go figure out your heart, figure out your things, figure out your trauma, figure out your pain, and then come to this. That's probably been like one of the number one things that I've been told is like, honestly, figure out your heart first. Figure out your pain. Figure out the things that have hurt you, and then step into that. Because or else you're just taking that over there for somebody else to try to figure out and bear and wade through. So, but yeah. Stop looking at everybody else's gifts. Be really content with your gift. Your gift is really great. Stop allowing the world to tell you what your gift is. That's all I'm going to say. Yeah, how do I handle family or suicide? Did I just really say that? I'm so tired. How do I handle my family or societal, pressure to get married? Yeah. I think marriage is a gift from the Lord. I think singleness is a gift from the Lord. I think that it's this. You have conversations with people. Whenever somebody's like, oh, asking me about be getting married, which honestly is really funny because did you know there's this rumor going around that I'm married and I just haven't told anybody yet, which is honestly something I would do. Which is really something I really would do. I would not say a word. That has been my life goal. My goal is to be married for at least a year before I say anything to anybody. Honestly, something I would do though. Yeah, I think you have conversations. I've had conversations with my parents about this. And so whenever my mom's kind of like hints at something or whatever, they stopped hinting. Like they're just like, she'll tell me when it's time. My dad has straight up said it to me. He's like, I know when you bring somebody home that's when I'll know, like that you're ready, that's it. And I don't need to be worried about you in this space because you are very confident in what you want and you will not settle for anything less. And my dad's a very good champion of my choices in this space. And my mom and I have had to have conversations about this because, you know, she loves me, but she just has things she wishes for my life, right? And she wants to see for me. But I think I've just had to have conversations where it's like, hey, no, I don't want to talk about that, or that's not where I'm at in life right now. Like, this is what I'm championing and this is what I'm going after. And when that comes, I'll tell you about it. And please don't pressure me about it. And so I've also had the other half where my mom has told people my business. And so I don't tell my business. That's just me though. What if I never get married? Is that part of God's plan for me? Yeah. I think I would ask you this, right? If you never got married, would he still be enough for you? Would the blood still be enough? I think you have to ask yourself that in a lot of contexts of life. I've asked myself that, like, if God never fulfilled my greatest longing, would I still love him? And my answer has always been yes. If your answer is no, it's time to dig a deeper well. It's time to fall more in love. And it's tough because I think, like I talked about last week, I think a lot of times we want to believe in that God is so good, he's going to give us every single thing. But we're not living for here. We're living for heaven, right? It talks about how our citizenship is found in heaven. And so if you're like, marriage is my greatest gift, no. Getting to sing holy, holy, holy in heaven is your greatest gift. Sitting at the marriage feast is the greatest gift. Your seat at the table. Like, that's it. That's it. All right. I'm going to move on because I might cry if I sit on that question for a second. How can I heal from past relationships or heartbreak? Yeah, man. I talk about grief a lot. I do talk about grief a lot. I would say you get honest with yourself about it. Honestly, heartbreak is tough. And past relationships too, like there's wounds that those can bear. And I've personally just had to I've dealt with heartbreak in a different way. I haven't had to deal with heartbreak in the midst of relationship because I've only broken up with people. And usually when I break up with you, it's because I'm over this. But I'm sorry. That's me. But I've dealt with heartbreak in the midst of like friendship and family relationships. So I really understand because there's parts of you that are like, I thought you were never going to leave me. I thought you would never hurt me. Right. And those things, I'm going to say this, obviously the Lord getting honest in your heart, to deal with some of those really hard wounds that I couldn't kind of get my brain to fixture itself around. I went to therapy. And I got honest. I still have a therapist, but just walking through really hard heartbreaks, that like I couldn't compute, that I didn't deserve to go through. And a therapist really helped me to really wrap my mind around it and heal myself and really get healthy outlets for how to handle this, because I used to just internalize it all, a lot of it, and then it would manifest itself in anger and just lashing out at people and not letting people in. And so I think one of the biggest things that you can really do is get honest with the Lord and get help when you really need it, because it's hard sometimes to get through those things. It's hard because you are vulnerable. You are really vulnerable. And sometimes somebody either took advantage of that, or maybe it's that it just didn't work out, and that still hurts. And those things only come through having conversations and being honest with the Lord in our pain. So, what personal growth should I focus on during my season of singleness? Yeah, everything. No. I don't know how to answer this. What personal growth? Loving the Lord. Like, I don't know what it is for you, you know? It depends on really what it is. Like, do you struggle with self-control? Then figure out ways to really get that in hand, right? Do you even struggle to read your Bible every day, to stay dedicated? Then get that into lock, right? One thing for me, my personal growth, is that I am learning to be better about my laundry. I feel like all my friends are listening right now. Yeah, I'm learning to be better about my laundry. And that's like my personal growth point, because I know when I get married that my husband would literally hate me if he saw like 5 clothing racks and just clothes everywhere, you know, and like racks on racks on racks of shoes. But that's my personal growth point. Trying to be really good about that. I'm also trying to be really good about fasting. I'm trying to do it once a week, and it's only been happening like every 3 weeks. So pray for me. But I think it's your personal places that you got to find growth. Like, make a list, figure out like, what am I really good at? What am I kind of struggling? Where can I grow at? Maybe it's cooking. If you can't cook, maybe it's time to learn how to cook. And don't be like, I'm just never going to learn how to cook. No, learn how to cook, please. Dear Lord, please learn how to cook. Some of you guys scare me. But like, maybe that's your place of growth, and that's important and vital. Last question. How do I forgive myself or others for past mistakes in dating? Ooh, y'all did that on purpose. Y'all did that on purpose. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, forgiving yourself is tough. It's being really honest in your heart. I remember I went through a season where I really struggled, and it was tough for me to, when I came out of that season, to look back at it and be proud of myself. And it was tough for me to be honest with myself with the Lord in it. And it was a place where the Lord and I journeyed to me really getting honest with myself about it, because I didn't want to talk about it. I almost wanted to like overlap everything that came from that season. And so it took me getting on my knees one night. I don't even think I was on my knees. I think I was just laying down and playing worship music and just sobbing. I think I cried for like 45 minutes straight, just like sobbed, because I was so disappointed in myself, and talking to the Lord about my disappointment in myself, and Him reminding me again of how He sees me as His daughter, biblically, like just like pieces of scripture to read over myself, because I was really disappointed with how I had handled things. And in the midst of that, I really I didn't, man, I'm freaking crying. I'm always crying. But in the midst of that, I just didn't handle things the way that I had wanted it. But as I journeyed with the Lord through it, He just showed me like, hey, my love for you didn't waver because you struggled. or because you didn't love me the way that you thought that you would in this season. Like, I still loved you. Here I was in the midst of it, and here I am catching all the tears. And so if you're like, how do I forgive myself? I think you gotta go get really honest with yourself and with the Lord. Even if you don't want to address those feelings, because it's really hard. And forgiving yourself takes addressing it. So, yeah, that's all I got. I'm sorry this was like really long. I didn't think that we were going to have this many questions. Yeah. Goodness. Well, I cried. We said a lot of good stuff. My computer's going to die. I also still have people here, and it's 9:55 at night, and that's wild. So, yeah. I hope you guys have a good week. It's been fun. It's been real. I will see you guys next week.